of Ganesha is one of the most inspiring stories for me from the tradition of yoga stories. Shiva is the deity that is associated with yoga, and Shiva really just means energy, the energy of yoga. And Shiva was pretty wild. He was not a calm person or a divine being. And so, of course, who fell for him but Parvati? Parvati, who had been raised in a very sort of demure home, had been brought up to be a good wife to a good, steady husband. And her parents were not at all pleased that she fell in love with Shiva. Nevertheless, she married him and really wanted to have a child. And Shiva was not at all interested in the commitment and the responsibility of children. But he eventually agreed, as she pleaded and begged and probably did some other manipulations. Quite a bit of manipulation went on in the relationship between Shiva and Parvati. However, he eluded her grasp and went up to the mountain and fell into a very, very deep meditation. And this is called Kaivalya when this happens. And so there he was, sinking into Kaivalya, and he lost all track of time. And meanwhile, Parvati had become pregnant, and she had a son, and his name was Ganesh. And she named him Ganesh. And he grew up. He grew up without a father. Sound familiar? And Parvati loved to take a bath, and Ganesh would guard her. He would guard the property and make sure that it was safe and that nobody would try to see his beautiful mother while she bathed. And Shiva, meanwhile, came out of Kaivalya and remembered that he had a wife, knew nothing of his son, and appeared at the house and wanted to see his wife. And Ganesh said, no, you can't see her. She's not available right now. And Shiva said, I absolutely will see her. He neglected to mention that she was his wife, and that's why he wanted to see her. He just was being headstrong and willful and very annoyed with this person who was not allowing him to see his wife. So we could get pretty Freudian here at this point, but don't do it. Just go with the sense of humor that comes from South Asia, which is very beautiful. Don't go too deep with it. It's more about karma and dharma than it is about any kind of relationship between father and son, although there's a little nod there to the competition between father and son. So Shiva, he kills Ganesh. He cuts off his head. He's so annoyed with him. He's not allowing him to see his wife. And Shiva is very impulsive. It's very interesting that the practice of yoga is to teach us to be more neutral and to calm and tone our impulses down. Well, Shiva did not do that at all. Off with his head, and in he went to see his wife, who was delighted to see him, so happy that she had her husband back, and wanted to know what he thought of their son. And well, needless to say, the conversation did not go well, as they figured out that the person who was keeping Shiva from seeing Parvati was guarding her with his life, had indeed his life was taken. So Parvati was very angry, and she told Shiva that he needed to fix it. So Shiva went out, and this story is much longer than the way I'm telling it, but I'm trying to just touch on the main points here. So Shiva went out and he found an elephant and he chopped off its head. Again, interesting that yoga teaches us ahimsa, non-harming, and yet these stories are full of violence and tragedy. So he chops off an elephant's head, puts it on his son's body, and revives his son. And Parvati is so happy to have her son back. Somehow his spirit is able to enliven this dead elephant's head, and he's one whole being again. So I'll be returning to this story again and again because there is so much going on here. But for today, I just want you to know sort of the basic story of Ganesh and how he came to be. And so that's it. He was a son who was killed and was brought back to life in a slightly different form with a human body and an elephant's head, the elephant's head that never forgets, the elephant's head that is wise and loving and bonded to the members of its tribe. And so Ganesh has come to represent overcoming obstacles. So you can always call upon the energy of Ganesh to overcome an obstacle in your life. In fact, think of an obstacle right now, a barrier, an obstruction, something that seems to be in the way. And perhaps in the same way that Shiva and Parvati and Ganesh found that the barrier was itself in some way the answer, you will find that too. You will find some way to turn that obstacle into a support, an affirmation, something that will carry you forward over and through that obstacle. Namaste.